Hydro website that says the World Health Organization has now declared or now suggested that Wi-Fi may be a possible carcinogen. Now, I phoned up BC Hydro the other day, and I didn't want the smart meter, and I said I don't want a smart meter. And they directed me over to Quartz, and she kept asking me, well, what's the reason? What's the reason? What's the reason? I said, do you legally have to have a reason, a legal reason for me not to have the smart meter? And she asked about 8 times. She wasn't going to give up. She was persistent. She was obviously reading from a script. And I said, okay, here it is. The World Health Organization has determined that Wi-Fi signals may be a possible carcinogen. She said, a what? How do you spell that? Carcinogen? Well, right there. It kind of suggests to you the kind of people we're dealing with when we come up upon a conversation like this. This is really, really important. And I think we need to stop and get people to not, and I'm not going to say the BC Hydro is lying. Hear me clearly. But I am suggesting that they put updated information on their website. There's a difference between lying and withholding the truth. You can always hide under a shroud of, well, I withheld a little bit of the truth. Well, remember, a fib is part of a lie, isn't it? If you knowingly withhold information about something, what is it? Is it the truth or is it the lie? Is there a gray area? Well, a fib is okay. Not when you're going to decide something this important. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest that you go over to the good folks at Citizens for Safe Technology. Do a Google search or just put in www.Citizens for Safe Technology and see what they have to say. I think once you read all of their information and all the scientists and all the really good documentation that they have in this particular area, you're going to start to think, you know what? Why weren't we consulted? Why wasn't anybody consulted? Have you heard about what the smart meters are going to do? The pros and the cons? You go to some websites, nothing but pros. Go to some websites, nothing but cons. But we need to establish, even if we had a completely balanced opinion of this thing, I think the opinion would be, stop what you're doing with the smart meters, give us a couple of alternatives, we need to study this more, because people are getting concerned. And when people get concerned, let me tell you this. Have you ever tried to stop a group of people, ordinary citizens, that knew or felt in their heart that they were absolutely right? I'll tell you what, it's going to be an interesting ride for the next few months between BC Hydro and the good folks over at Citizens for Safe Technology. So go over there and take a look. And if you have any feedback or any suggestions or anything at all that you want to contribute to the show, you can email us at unclerickyradio@gmail.com. Thanks so much, folks, for joining us on the show. Thought I would give you this little tidbit because it's very, very important, and I think it warrants a look-see. Till next time, see you later. Rick Holland saying bye-bye.
This is the tale of Resolution 174 to put a moratorium on smart meters. Early this morning, this was late in the agenda, and so after 3 days of debate on different resolutions, it became clear early today that we simply weren't going to get to the smart meter motion. So Judith Cullington, who's a city councillor from Colwood, put forward a motion to bring it out, to pull it out so that we could debate it earlier on. The standing motion with us just holding our cards wasn't clear, so we actually went to the clickers. We went to a digital vote, and it lost 50.01 to 49.99. And so literally one 1/1000th of a vote ended up being the deciding factor of this. It wasn't 1%, it was 1/1000th of a vote. to not pull it out. And so we went through the rest of the motions, and as we got closer to the end of the agenda, many of us started to worry, so I actually stood up and made a point of order. I made a point of order that we should add time to the entire resolution session so we could get through the final 16 resolutions that remained, including our 174. It was called that point of order was not debatable. I went to move to overrule the chair, and it was called that was not an option at the time as well. And so the chair called for the rest of the block, the 16 motions, to be called as a block, and asked if any of the motions anyone wants to pull any of the motions. I went up and once again made a brief argument to pull 174 as a matter of great public interest. And that time the vote was, I'd say, about 30% to actually pull the motion. So we knew that finally this would make it to the floor and would get to be debated. The rest of the motions were then passed as endorsed by, or not endorsed by the Resolutions Committee. And as the closing motion of this entire session, we got to debate 174. Judith Cullington, who's the Colwood City Councillor, introduced the motion, spoke to the motion, spoke passionately about the fact that this is about personal rights, that she's not a scientist and doesn't claim to understand all the science behind this, but she spoke about the need for people to be able to make these personal choices themselves. There were many people willing to speak on the pro side. I was standing at the next mic over, but the chair, seeing that there were no cons, called the question, and I'm so happy to announce this motion passed. And so for me, this is a matter of so many things. It's a matter of process. It's a matter of the government completely ignoring. And we saw by the statements of Minister Rich Coleman, who said, it doesn't matter what people think, we're going to do this anyway. Well, Minister Rich Coleman, I warn you right now that you better listen to these people and you better listen to the residents of BC, because they're the ones who put you in power and they're the ones who can take you out. Ultimately, this comes down to very basic principles for me. I asked myself if the city of Victoria was in charge of power distribution and we went to put in smart meters and we faced this kind of opposition, would we go ahead and do it no matter what? And of course, there was the answer to that is a resounding no. The city of Victoria wouldn't do it. No municipality in BC would do this in light of this kind of opposition. So why would we allow a Crown Corporation to do this in our own residents, to our own residents, in our municipalities? Ultimately, it comes down to one basic principle. People should have a right to decide what technology they're exposed to within the privacy of their own home. And so I just want everyone here to repeat this. BC Hydro, you've heard today that UBCM doesn't consent to your process. BC Hydro, I don't consent. Say it with me. 1, 2, 3. I don't consent. Say it again.
I don't consent.
One more time.
I don't consent.
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank all the people here who took so much time to make this issue forward, to talk to the councillors who were in there, to make sure everyone had the proper information. I want to make sure that you guys are recognized, because this wasn't something that was done by city councils, it wasn't something that was done by municipal authorities, and it's certainly not something that was done by with provincial consent. This is a movement by the people, and all that I'm doing, all that Councillor Judith Cullington and all the people who voted in favor of this moratorium did today is listen to you folks. So thank you for speaking so loudly and letting us know how you feel about the installation of these smart meters. And let's all keep fighting this until we have an opt-out option, until the government reverses this, until we finally have a moratorium on this absolutely unfair process, on this potentially dangerous technology, on really what is an absolutely poor plan by the provincial government. Thank you so much for coming out today.
wanted it to